This is great. This is great. Thank you for being here. I want to show a brief video. Some of you have seen it already, so don't give the last words away here. But I want to show you a brief video to begin to frame this conversation.
By the year 2030, I will be 21 years old. I could be an engineer, doctor, or scientist, but I will have to go to college.
College? Do I have to be thinking of college already?
In Arizona, only 18 of my classmates will graduate college.
18%.
18%.
18%.
18%.
18%.
18%. If we don't change things.
By the year 2030, I will be 26 years old.
Whether I want to be an engineer, firefighter, or a nurse.
Architect or software designer.
Mechanic or doctor.
A lawyer, a filmmaker, or a graphic designer.
There's a strong chance I need a degree or a certificate for that job.
Our goal is for 60% of Arizonans to have a certificate or a degree.
By the year 2030,
we need to train workers for high-paying STEAM-related jobs to grow Arizona's economy.
Job openings in Arizona are growing in healthcare,
social assistance, finance, insurance,
professional, scientific, and technical services sectors.
Those are jobs that need people with college educations.
By 2030, 2/3 of Arizona's my age will need a technical certificate, associate's, or bachelor's degree.
If I go to college, I'll be more likely to be healthy and live longer.
I'll earn more money.
Earning more money will mean a bigger tax base for the state.
And I'll be more likely to purchase my own home. We need to start educating our Arizona workers.
I pledge to go to college.
I pledge to go to college.
I pledge to go to college. Whether that's a community college for a certificate or associate's degree.
a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a doctorate.
We need to go to college.
Kids like me are critical to Arizona success. So I'm going to college.
Now, what can you do to make sure that happens?
Will you pledge to support me?
Will you encourage me?
Will you remind me every day that higher education is important?
Will you help me make a plan for college?
Will you keep telling me it's possible?
That I can do it?
Will you pledge to tell me to keep going?
Even when I want to give up.
Will you? Will you?
If we all work together,
Every person.
Politician,
Business and community leader.
Working to support us to go to college.
We can reach this goal together.
60% by 2030.
60%.
60%.
60%.
By the year 2030, 60% of Arizonans my age will have a college degree or certificate.
The future of Arizona depends on all of us.
I pledge to go to college.
I pledge to go to college.
I pledge to go to college.
This was filmed with Cottonwood Oak Creek School. It was also filmed by our wonderful film school here at Yavapai College. And Tells was also, Thatcher Borland was also involved in that. This is something that's very, very dear to our heart. More than dear to our heart, it's to our future. Right now you heard the statistics about that. The other part to remember, this is something that our governor, business people are behind that. But also other states are doing it. I'm convinced that at the governor's conference about 2 years ago, many governors decided to do that. Texas has Texas 30, very similar to this. Other states have things where they say, hey, we've got to raise the workforce, we've got to. So I want you to park that over there. Other states are doing this as well. The other part that I want to talk about, and I want to lay some groundwork here for you, is What does it look like from a workforce development standpoint? What these kids are mentioned, or children are mentioned. Where's Richard? Richard gave me this data, which is very, very telling. And you probably have seen parts of this. But I didn't want to mess up any of the percentages or numbers here. Notwithstanding failure to resolve the federal government's budgetary challenges, which we always know, we hear from every legislator, congressman, et cetera, but we also know what the budgets look like. The U.S. economy will grow from 140 million jobs to 165 million jobs by 2020. They're talking about 2030. 2020 already, our economy is going to grow. By 2020, 65% of all jobs in the economy, all jobs, will require some type of post-secondary education and training beyond high school. 65%. Also, there will be 55 million job openings in the economy through 2020, 24 million openings from newly created jobs, and 31 million openings due to people like me, the baby boomers, retiring. So the new jobs, what's even scarier about that is the new jobs, we don't even know what they are. Now, the onus on the community college or on any educational institution is how do you educate students for jobs, skill set, that we don't even know what the jobs are going to be. And you've seen this rapid development very, very quickly here. The job openings in healthcare, isn't it odd that YC has healthcare as one of our main areas. Community services and STEM will grow the fastest among occupational clusters. And finally, the United States will fall short by 5 million workers with post-secondary education at the current rate by 2020. Again, they're talking about 2030. By 2020, the data is there. And you may wonder, oh, okay, how did that happen? Well, again, I'm going to talk to you about different times in workforce development and times in the economy. But let's bring it back to Prescott. How many of you have tried to find a doctor in Prescott? Okay, let's raise the hands up. Okay, or I can raise both hands. How many of you have had doctors that retired? I've had 2 in 7 years, retire one and trying to find one. Are you aware that with doctors alone, if you took all the students that are currently enrolled in med school across the nation, it will not equal by a long shot all the doctors who are able to retire right now. So that skill shortage, what it is. To me, the doctors in Prescott, that was the biggest surprise to me when I got here. Oh, what? Oh, no, you aren't going to let me, your practice is, oh. And then found a wonderful one, he retires. A year later, the other one retired. I'm like, shoot, now the qualifications for me with the doctor is, how young are you? You cannot retire. So let's keep that in mind. Some of this doesn't feel real, or you think, oh, that's somewhere else. No. And all of this is even compounded, even more compounded, because we're in a rural area. Again, the doctors bring it home, that statistic. But let's look at the economy and see what's happening. Not in present day, we'll get to that. But I think my dad is the best example of this. Yeah, we had hunting and fishing at one time. My dad wasn't back then. He wasn't alive yet. But he was a farmer. And the United States had an economy based primarily on agrarian. Now, how many of you have been in a John Deere tractor lately and tried to run it? You can't do it. It's all computerized, totally computerized. Basically, Uber should almost get in the John Deere tractor because you program everything and you pull all that data together, you see where you have to fertilize, and you can let the combine just go, and it'll do it. Okay, but agrarian. Then we moved into the industrial age. And my dad, who was a farmer, started working in town because he couldn't make it on as a farmer. And he went ahead, worked in town as a building superintendent of Billboard Publications, and had that job, industrial more. But then, guess what happened in 1946? Computers. Computers came in and we moved from that to the information age. And then from there, we're already in another stage. We're out of the information age, we're in the knowledge age. And you can see that time and time again. It's not by accident that Facebook is in the news a lot. The breaches are like, okay, Unfortunately, sometimes it's like the shootings in schools, unfortunately. But I mean, who's going to be breached next with the data? You guys, I'm right with you. Don't go ahead and put any personal stuff out on the whole big data concept. How do you pull all that information together? Again, as I started here with the information Richard gave me on just the workforce and the jobs, et cetera, it's all the data that we have. But what we need to do now, in the information age, we brought the data forward, created it, but now we've got to go ahead and see how we synthesize that and bring that together. So what's odd, or not odd, and what you might not have, some of these dots, is where education was. As I said in the beginning, in education, what we're grappling with here is how do you teach people to be prepared for a world that they don't even know, and we don't even know how the escalation. If you haven't read Tom Friedman's book, Thank You for Being Late. He wrote The World is Flat. But there's three main things happening that we haven't dealt with before. But it's the interactions that's fascinating. Global warming is one. The globalization is another. And then the human interaction with it. Everything's moving very quickly. You just see it compounding all the time. And it used to be, oh my, knowledge doubles every, so no, it's very tight time frame. But humans, it takes 7 years to adjust to change. So you've got that going, got that there. Now, how do we again adjust to things? So I ask you, when you look at agrarian and all those different things that I mentioned, what was happening in education? Some things were happening. Again, back to my dad. He did not finish high school. It wasn't required. Anything else. So he didn't. Also, the war came in. He went to war in World War II, et cetera. It's interesting what our economy dictates to education as far as the skill set. The skill set is markedly different just with the John Deere tractor alone. The skill set's markedly different about what you have to have, what skills, et cetera. Humans are the ones who can collaborate. They can go ahead and look at how to synthesize information. Now, AI is there. And if you've been reading about what's happening in the techies and the Elon Musks of the world saying we are very fearful of AI and the power that is. So each time to get a handle on that and prepare our students as well as adjust to that. So as we look at that whole thing, I ask you the question back here, who in the heck thought of this idea? I'm not that bright. Who thought of it? Who do you think thought that, hey, more specifically, community college should be free? Who came up with it? What do you think? Jonathan? Mm-hmm. Possibly?
European.
Mm-hmm. In the United States, which president do you think came up with it? Hmm? Mm-mm. No, but you're getting close. Some people think, okay, it was Bill Clinton, because Clinton really took community colleges and put them right in the forefront. Whoa. Now, that was a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing in the sense that people began to see with the power and the strength of community colleges. Otherwise, at that time, when Bill Clinton and I was down in Georgia, and we were one of the happy units of the 34 units of the university system of Georgia. Georgia Tech, UGA, and Georgia State got the bulk of the money. We got a little bit, because we were just little people. Some people may think it's Obama, because the American Promise Act was started under his. But this thing was already moving. It's actually Harry S. Truman. In 1947, he did the Truman Commission on Higher Education, one of the few presidents that actually said, hey, we got to come together and figure out what we're doing. Keep in mind, 2 years earlier, the GI Bill was done in 1946-44. It changed the whole shift of who was supposed to go to college. Again, was it because of the goodness of his heart? Probably not. possibly. I mean, Truman is one of my, oh, I'm sorry, I just touched this. Truman is one of my favorite presidents, but, and not a bud, but he understood, he's the only American president in the 20th century that didn't go to college. And he convenes this commission, says, we got to look at this. He already knew, everybody knew all the veterans were coming back. What are we going to do with them? But it's back to the economy. Think of when computers came in. They weren't definitely going back into the farms and the industries. They were revamping back from the wartime economy back. What are we going to do with these guys? And they were primarily men at that time, but what are we going to do? And so the GI Bill was introduced. He convenes the commission. And what other important, he wanted to say, hey, who should go to college? How do we get that skill set in there? The other part that's in that commission report, and I encourage you to read it, is he was very, very concerned about people of color. It was a have and a have not situation. The unfortunate part is that we're still very much in the have and the have not. The socioeconomic gap has never been wider. Here's our future. Whoa, where's the workforce? So it's actually Truman that introduced this idea. So I wanted to first say, okay, let's step back and understand what has been involved in the Promise Act, the College Promise, College Promise thing. Because it's an interesting thing. Because people think, ooh, that's free colleges. I get it even at home. I love my husband, very much so. Students should have a stake in that. If you give them free, they'll just slough off. And I'm like, no, they won't. No, they won't. Let me tell you why, Ron. We'll go over it again. So as we get to eating our salads, I go over it again with you. But let me just share some things with you here. The objectives of the American College Promise Act are very simple. Increase access to higher education, again, back to that Truman Commission, et cetera. Reduce cost, and related to that, decrease or eliminate debt. The largest group, and Bill, I know you'd know that, the largest group that has the highest debt are college students, all the debts. Whoa. And unfortunately, I've met some people, not here, but at other colleges, that run the actuarial tables and say, I don't even have to pay it back because I'm going to be dead by then. And so, and you're thinking, where did this come from? That people don't feel some responsibility about this, and what's that going to do to the economy? That whole bubble is moving through. We got to decrease the balloon here. And the third thing is to go ahead and improve retention and completion rates. We see it here. If you, we're not the best example of that, in that we have such a mixture of college students here at Yavapai. We have people that are Nolly, some of you are here, that, hey, I don't really care to be enrolled in any credit classes. I want to be enrolled in this. Let's go. I want to keep learning. As our dear friend Dennis has said many times, we're the best example of the college of the future. And I'm like, oh, good, I've got a little time. And then he said, of the present too, Penny. You know, so let's get with it. Of looking at the age variation and what's happening with that. People keep learning, people keep growing, et cetera. But we have a number of people with personal interest. So when you start to look at things, and they just want to take classes, and it may be in the credit, maybe in the non-credit. We have such a high percentage, and I believe it's 14% of our enrollment is tied to those high schools. Thank heavens. What's magical about 12 years of high school? If they're ready to take a college class, let's get them going. Everything. So you have all these different variables in here. And so as you look at that and say, okay, completion rates, it doesn't look good for any community college if you do the 2 years. Because guess what else we have? We have a high percentage of part-time students. So they're not going to, our curriculum might look like 2 years, less depending if it's a certificate, but it's going to take them 6 years to get through because they're working, raising a family, et cetera. So all this is in there. But the American Promise Act says, no, we have got to get those things completed and retain them and complete. Community college students also, from my perspective and experience, have the most, they bear the brunt of the impact of life. I think about what they face. They're raising a family. Many of our students have 3 jobs at the same time. Many of them have transportation concerns. They've got child care concerns, all this stuff. And then you put their parents on top of them, they get ill, or they decide to move in with them, et cetera. And I offered that to my mother-in-law. She got scared. Move in with you? I don't think so. But I mean, the old sandwich generation of what happens to them. They're our students. So how do we go ahead and work with all that? How do we go ahead and put that together? But the American College Promise Act, that's what it's for. That's what they were talking about. Here's the other part that I want you to park, right over here. It's that it's not one format. It's not, hey, here is what you do to be eligible. Those are the goals that I mentioned, objectives. But so far, there's 200 of these programs around the United States in 43 states. And guess which state doesn't have it? You're right. Arizona doesn't have it. Which means then, where's our workers going? Where, again, an example that's all near and dear to our hearts right now, where are our teachers going? They're going to Colorado, Utah, wherever, because of the salaries. They can't make it on these salaries. So we're also not only trying to get people into the door, but those who have gone through the door, graduated, et cetera, get employed, and in the Dewey Humboldt school system, Bradshaw, et cetera, 1/3 of their teachers turn over every year. They leave. So we're a great training ground for teachers. Hey, Arizona, #1, they go. That's not good for our kids. So it's this whole thing about what's happening in education, but the competition. So another thing to park over here, the competition. These other states are doing it in one form or another, and here's Arizona. So how do we grow our economy? How do we do this if we're not investing in the future? So that's something else to think about here. Then what we have, let me tell you some things here. Some of the other goals. Make 2-year colleges. If you read the document, which I have a copy of if anybody wants, it's to make 2-year colleges as debt-free, remember what I talked about debt, and universal as high school. Again, back to that skill set. We need these workers. To enhance student responsibility. This is where I hammer it home to my husband. Excuse me. And I'll get back to that. There's student responsibilities in this thing too. Then help community colleges become even higher, or more, have an even higher quality index. This is something I want you to be very proud of your community college here. We have taken this very seriously, whether we do a Promise program or not. The quality of education that comes out of this institution for all ages. Let's start with the young ones. Right over in the FEC, the only 5-star, top-rated family enrichment center, or as Vicki and others tell me not to say daycare center, but it's a learning lab. What's happening over there, et cetera. But it's there, all the way up through Ollie. We're looking at that and saying, hey, how do we go ahead and make it the highest quality? It's interesting that whenever even the third parties come on to here to accredit us and to evaluate, we come out really high because it's strong. So, but yet other community colleges where I was before, and I love Iowa and everything, we were building that, et cetera, but we didn't have the vocational programs like we have here. Are you aware that YC, Yavapai, has the most diverse and number, especially if you look in comparison to the enrollment, and you put on the rural part of it, we have the most diverse vocational, professional tech, whatever you want to call it, C-techs of the world, most diverse in the whole state. So we have this here. So that enhancing that quality, et cetera, is there. And it's already here, but we can always do better. Improve, another goal of this is to improve that transfer rate from 2-year to 4-year. Many of you probably will interchange the difference between some terms. Junior colleges, technical colleges, community colleges. They're all the same. And no, junior colleges just have the liberal arts and they transfer. Technical colleges just have the career technical. We have both. And the beauty of it is that they come together as well. And so as you'll read in anything, but any documents or articles about what should we be teaching students? It's both of those. How do we get not only a trained workforce, but an educated citizen out of this? Because we know even after just 12 credits, 12 measly little credits of a post-secondary degree, here's some things that happen. One, they're more likely to vote. Two, the chances that they will go to prison or be incarcerated markedly decrease. And then you put the drug situation in here. That comes out. Just 12 credits. So I'm out here saying, come here for just 12 credits. No, I ask to complete, et cetera. But as we look at that 2 to 4 year transfer rate and outcomes, so pleased what Yavapai College does, and I'm going to focus on Yavapai. We have that strong program. Our students are recruited at all the different schools, and just they do very well, and I'll get back to that. This is another part. The American Promise Act ensures, and I think that Arizona is a poster child for this, and ensures that states have to have a stake in education, particularly higher education. Back to the Truman Report. With that, community colleges were supposed to be free. The last state, I believe, that couldn't handle that was California. And I always thought, how did they do that? Where did they get that idea, et cetera? No, that was in some of the original documents, et cetera, to do that. Many states tried to do that. But when Arizona started to form the community colleges, they said, okay, let's do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 1/3 property tax, 1/3 state, 1/3 tuition. Made sense. A lot of states followed that. Sad to inform you that why your property taxes go up is that we are less, this year we may be 1% comes from the state. And they're like, no, sorry, you just don't have the money. Well, look at where the investment is. And I always look at the governor and some other people and say, do you want to pay for the prisons or do you want to pay for education? Now, you get a lot more benefit over here, but your choice. And so how do you go ahead and have that when you have just 1%? So I'm forever grateful to all of you, because we're trying to balance this thing. How do we keep the tuition at a level, not only by statute, because we can only be a certain percentage compared to ABOR, the Arizona Board of Regents schools, but more important, how do we go ahead and be accessible to the community and balance that with property tax? Also, if Clint Ewell was here, but he's on his way to Albuquerque, our CFO, he would tell you where we place. I think we're the 5th lowest in this country on property tax, et cetera. And it's tough. Again, trying to balance those values or meaningful things, et cetera. I don't like my tax bill either. Yeah. So, and I mentioned that about the jobs and technical. And the technical training, again, look at what's growing the fastest, as I mentioned before. The healthcare, STEM, et cetera, and we're very much exceeding that. So how did this thing get into the forefront? All of a sudden everybody's talking about it. And I'll touch a little bit on the political at the end. It was Tennessee. Tennessee came out of the gates first. One, it was by a private foundation, and Bill, we're going to ask the foundation to go ahead and just fund this whole thing. No. But a foundation started with one, I think about 3, or a county, no, it's more than a county, just a few counties. Pellissippi State Community College was in there and some other ones, but I knew people at Pellissippi. And they said, we're going to try this. And then the person who was in that county or that area became governor. He saw the benefits of what was happening there. He took it and got it passed through the legislature. Here's what they've experienced so far, and this was in the fall of 2015. So 3 years, almost 4. Their enrollment has increased by 25%. Their persistence rate, that is staying in college when life happens, is now 80%. And they've decreased loans by 25%. Now keep in mind, there's 43 other states that are doing something. They're starting to see very similar results. Who isn't doing something? Okay. So let's get back to what my husband was very concerned about. Still concerned about it. Where's that student stake? Why aren't they serious? He's an IT guy, so we just have to be patient with him. So I'm like, whoa, tuition is one small part for our students. Yes, the board approved back in, Karen, was that in February? When they approved the tuition increase by a couple dollars. Okay, tuition's one small part. Remember all of life. And what happens, and I'm not saying we should pay for their jobs, whatever, I'm not going there. But when you decide to go to college, you may be giving up a job. You may have a housing situation to deal with. Many of our students have childcare all of a sudden, or transportation. And then you talk about health benefits as well, if they even had health benefits before. So all those things come into play. Forgot the other one, books. Which can often equal the cost of the tuition. Now, again, I'm proud of YC. Clinton Company, Frank D'Angelo, are looking at how we can do open source books and different things, et cetera, to try to get that price down. But those are some of the things there. To me, the students are at stake. Now, in the American College Promise, they'll say also, hey, if you're going to do one of these programs, encourage you to do it for all the different reasons I've mentioned, the students have to go full time. And they've got to keep a GPA, a baseline GPA. It varies by state, but hold them accountable. So they just don't float through and I think I'll go to class today, or I think I'll get online, I don't know, I don't feel like it. No, to participate in that, the expectations are there. Also on the flip side, in the American College Promise, they hold the colleges accountable as well. Again, very proud of YC. But we didn't look at data back in Iowa. Not that much. I loved it. And we follow policy governance here, which I love. It's a model of governance, et cetera. The board here has me in the college submit reports every month to show accountability. Once a year, they go ahead and say, hey, no, you got to show us in the year that you have achieved these goals. And I'm feeling pretty proud of it. And then Pat McCarver, one of our board members, says, well, that's nice, go further. I never can reach that end goal. And I'm like, hey, hold it, we worked hard. Give me some credit. Yeah, give us all some credit. But she will, it's the accountability. In Iowa, you know how they all, I love my board chair back there. But he would say, and he always walked by the campus, walking around the campus, he'd say, this college is so good. And I'd say, how do you know? Oh, enrollment's up. I mean, board members just love enrollment's up. Whatever happens. And keep in mind in community colleges, if the economy is good, our enrollment goes down. And it has an inverse relationship there. The enrollment's up. The budget is balanced. Oh, and I haven't received any anonymous letters this week. So here I am, scared to death of going into an evaluation, my annual evaluation. Did anybody send an anonymous letter? Okay. And so I would look at it and say, I can only control one of those things. I can make sure the budget is balanced. That's it. And you're saying the college is great? Never asked about persistence rate, never asked about graduation rate, never asked about all these different things. It was like, oh no, we're a great college. Unfortunately, downside, Iowa wasn't the only college that does that. And they've got students who are trying to train in their, but again, back to what age we're in. We're in knowledge. The data is there. So look at it and how do you deal with it? Here, we're looking at all that, and we've been looking at it for years. And the emphasis here, and I'm so proud of our faculty and staff for always setting that bar higher, higher. We're one of the leaders in the state with a program called Pathways. And Pathways essentially is, well, let's pretend we're a student coming to school. First time, or like me, first generation college student. I know what I did when I was approached by this at University of Cincinnati. But let's pretend we're coming to YC, and Bob Hoskovitz, our advisor, says, okay, what major do you want? I go, I don't know. I don't know, let's see. My uncle was a fireman. Sister was a teacher. I don't know, somewhere, I don't know. Well, you got 130 options. Which one do you want? And I'm thinking, God, how can I afford going to college? Pathways is basically realigning our curriculum that there's 5 different schools to say, hey, no, if you want to go into the fine arts or into art, whatever, the arts rather, and culture, et cetera, here's this. Let's look over at healthcare. Here's one for that. So that when you go into there, the first year of classes that you take are going to be able to transfer into or continue into any of the many majors under healthcare. Same with business. So it funnels it, and they don't lose time, money, energy, whatever in these classes. So we're leading that, and it's a national movement, but very proud of YC being the leader in the state right now to push that through. So we're being, again, looking at that, we're measuring our KPIs and everything else with that. So the college does have a stake in this because the federal government wants to say, for every $3 we put into you under this, state's got to put in $1, and you're going to be held accountable. I'd welcome that opportunity to be held accountable because we've got the data again, and we've got progress, commitment from our faculty and staff. So let's come back down, as I said, to Yavapai College. What are we doing? Mentioned pathways already. Good things there. The quality of YC education. Said we had data. Let's take the one that usually gets the highest press, the cost. Okay, so you look at cost. I look just at tuition of ABOR, you know, NAU, ASU, U of A, and looked at their cost of tuition. Said, oh, $14,000. You saw it in the newspaper. Nobody raised tuition except I think U of A, one of them did, by a little bit. Oh, they made a big deal out of this. What didn't make the paper are the fees. And the fees, Karen can tell us about the fees because you've got a son right there. It is high. So you take either $14,000 or $21,000 on an annual basis to go to these schools, which is great. Yeah. Compare it to the $3,500 to come here. If you go and add housing, it'll be up around $5,000. 240 students live in our residence halls. So you go through $3,500, $5,000. But here's the really good part. We don't have fees. Years ago, before I was here, so I can't take absolutely any credit for that, merged it, put the fees right into that tuition, because if you don't know the right answer or right question to ask, say, oh, what's a tuition? You don't know about those fees. I remembered that when I was in a different fashion when I went to UC Cincinnati and paid for my parking pass. It was not a parking permission or guarantee, it was a hunting license. And that's all it was a hunting license that I could come in and try to hunt for a space. But I paid for it, and back then it was $25 a term, and I hate to tell you that was back in 1970. So you can only imagine what it is now. So we combine those here. Truth in advertising saying, hey, this is what it's going to cost you. That's one thing. Usually, and you look at that on any chart, and I'm sure, I bet you there's going to be a chart. In fact, I think he gave me one just to show you. When we do the board presentation on the budget, I bet you Clint will show that chart. Yeah, just here. This is us, the little gold. This is ABOR up here. And we go, board, here's the difference, et cetera. And it's like, whoa. So that's just one small thing there. Let's look at other factors about YC. I can't thank enough the foundation. We have the best foundation for community colleges in this state. We go ahead and let me introduce Bill Miller and his wife Carol here. Bill's on that foundation. It's been on there for how many years now? 11 years. And now what we do, how much money did you authorize to go ahead to be spent on scholarships? Yeah, it's around, I thought it was 500,000 plus, right in there. 500,000. And I think we have the first alum on the board in the form of Valerie Woods. The rest of you all moved here, whatever, love this college, and are raising money for us. And the students get the scholarships. We raise more money per capita, again, rural community college, than any other college. You know who we're second to in the amount raised? All 10 community colleges of Maricopa. 10. Their smallest college is a little bit more than 10,000. We're at 7,800. Look at what these people are doing for us. They believe in students, we help them. The other thing about the quality, guess what? It took me 5 years to, it didn't take me 5 years. 5 years ago, I asked our Director of Institutional Research and Effectiveness, Dr. Tom Hughes, to work his charm and work with the other statisticians, IR people in ABOR to study how well our students do when they transfer. Because I knew in Iowa, sorry to go back to Iowa, we touted that saying, come to us, my word, you will do fine when you transfer. You'll have that base. Community college, and I now know why ABOR didn't want to study it. Community college students do extremely fine, in fact better, than students who start at these institutions. Nothing against them, but look, maybe it's size, maybe it's the teaching assistants, maybe it's who knows what in there. They do very well, and of the community colleges, guess which one has the best rate? So this president will use that time and time again to say, why come to Yavapai? It's not a less than institution. So we have these things and the strength of that. What else are we doing here? As I mentioned, there's a group here. It's the hardest group or most difficult group to go ahead and recruit are those that are already what I call the working poor. High school, we have what we call the penetration rate. How many students do you expect to come out of here to come to Yavapai College? And it's good, it's solid. They're captive audience. It's sort of like the prisons. I mean, you know, Cochise College has a prison. Oh yeah, we're really good. You know, like, hold it, they can't go anywhere. You've got enrollment. No, we don't have a prison. But we have the high schools and we have that, and they're coming through, and we know how to recruit those students. But the next time you go out to eat, or you go and exchange money at a cashier station, if it's still there, it might be all robotics. But as you go there, ask the person if they want to stay in that job forever. I would almost guarantee, say, no, I'd really like to do this. And if there isn't a line behind you or other people in the restaurant, start talking to that person and how much they want to go to college to get a family wage earning job. And the family wage earning jobs, all you have to do is look at Rad Tech. All of our jobs, our programs have family wage earning jobs. Somebody tried to convince me to do cosmetology. Unless you own the salon, it's not a family wage earning job. And I've got, you know, enough hair. Now, Dennis, sorry. But how do we go ahead and have people have that family wage earning job and have those programs in those fields? And we're watching data all the time. What is it? What is it? What should we be offering? What is needed? And again, that extra bonus or burden of many of the jobs haven't even been created yet. So how do we get them there? But here we have, so we looked at that, and I think my vice presidents almost had cardiac arrest. And I said, I think we should go for free, you know, any GED graduate, get free tuition. And Clint, the CFO, what? You know, I said, yep. These kids are some of the smartest kids, or people, I say kids, GED graduates are some of the smartest people I know. School just didn't fit for them. In reality, the GED diploma, or that's written, the GED certificate only helps you in the military. It doesn't help you anywhere else. But again, back to that 12 credits, how do we get them over that bar and get them involved and go on with their lives? And when I did, you know what, here, we already have people coming in. They're doing just fine. And I've been able to go ahead, why we picked that is for those reasons, as well as it can be under the radar of our legislature, quite frankly. Because as you may have read, 2 years ago, the legislature took out Maricopa and Pima from any state aid. And guess which college is the next one, if they decided to do it? Now I'm saying, hey, the 900, take it, just get me out from underneath some of these rules and regulations. But anyway, but it's, whoa. And I know that if we do it, meaning if we had our own promise program across the board, for all the reasons why I'm in it, they'd punish the other colleges that aren't as fiscally sound, managed well, whatever, from Clinton Company. It would hurt them drastically. I got a taste of that even before I got here, because in 2011, massive cuts happened. And I don't know how many millions we lost in Yavapai. New head of the education, I think he was a representative, the House of Representatives Budget Higher Ed Committee. I want to get to know the community colleges, so I'm going to come out. You guys got hurt pretty bad, okay, so I'm going to come up and see exactly how you did this. Clint and Greg Gillespie at that time called me and said, my God, what are we going to do? Do we put you on the phone? I said, I'm the last person you should put on the phone because I'm up here. I haven't even gotten there yet. I said, you guys will do fine. They had just done massive reduction of staff, programs, et cetera, to get the budget aligned because this was announced like in April. Okay? Most of you, and anybody in business knows, most of your budget's already encumbered, especially in academic. So what were they did a great job. Here's how it backfired on us. He said, oh, you did a lot of good, the chair. And he's no longer in the legislature, but he said, oh, you did really good. So we thought, hey, good. Greg and Clint called me and say, fine. He went back and made the announcement on the floor of the House saying Yavapai still has a lot of fat in it, and that means the other colleges have even more fat. I'm like, what? So I am very leery of ever hurting the other community colleges. But here we are. So as you look at this, should community colleges be free? Should they? Again, tuition isn't that much. The student has a stake in it. The college has a lot of stake in it. But look at the workforce. Look at what the skill sets that we have here to go further as a state. Karen will remember when we went ahead and tried to do the gubernatorial debate when Governor Ducey was elected. And I said, let's do one on education. We only had one person of all the candidates say they'd be here, and that was Ken Bennett. Now, it could have been because he may have been in town, because his family's there, but Ken Bennett. He said, no, I believe in education, I'll be there. Well, you can't have a debate with one person unless he has an empty chair or some other and so then I looked at Tim Carter, who's a politician and to the hilt. He's got excellent political skills. And county superintendent, I said, Tim, can you help me? And he said, well, we've got to expand that. Okay. So I said, okay. So my little mantra was connect the dots. Education, ... regional economic, ... quality of life. They all came. And they wanted to discuss it. Now, they didn't talk that much about education as much as I'd like them to, but at least they're here, and we're discussing part of that. So in closing, I want you to remember that mantra, how it's all related, that economic development's right in the middle. When I got here, in our neighborhood, it's a funny little neighborhood. It's definitely a dog neighborhood. And I'm walking my dog at the time, and the neighbors, as I find out, give you 3 days. First day is, oh, they'll be nice, everybody's nice. But they won't ask you. Second day, they say, are you visiting someone? No, I live. Oh, the third day, where do you live? Where do you live? By the fourth day, they say, and if you're working, because there's a lot of retirees, oh yeah, I work. And as soon as it came out, they said, oh, are you teaching? I said, well, Yavapai College. Are you teaching? No, they don't let me teach. They don't let me teach. And so they said, what do you do? I'm the president. Oh my God. Each one of the people that I met in that first week came back to something that surprised the heck out of me. You better make sure you're involved in economic development because I chose to live here for the quality of life. And your college is going to get the workforce, And I'm like, my God, these people. Well, it's a very talented people. But let me close by adding that political part. Some people say, oh, free. I would venture to say that if you're on the conservative side, possibly Republican, because I'm not so sure conservative liberals are what party, whatever. On that side, I should use my right hand, but this right, they'll say, hey, the workforce, I want the economy, we got to get that. The data that I shared with you proves it pretty much, that, hey, we got to do some serious stuff to get the population educated and trained. If you go to the other side, other end, it could be a social justice issue. It could be equality. Where's the American dream as far as people getting an education? And remember all the things that I told you about just after 12 credits. What happens? We've got the data. So I will end there, answer any questions. I don't see my husband, so he will not bring it up again about get those students, they have a stake in this. And anybody have any questions, thoughts? Yes?
I have a comment. I'm hoping that Senator Alan Simpson from Wyoming is right about a person such as you. I hope that you are tougher than a boiled owl. Because
yeah.
you're going to need it in the future. I think one of the biggest things that you're going to fight until your retirement is our culture of greed in this country.
The culture of what?
Culture of greed.
Oh, greed, yeah. Oh.
Where the first CEO that made $1 million a year was the CEO of Coca-Cola in 1982. The CEO of Toys R Us, taking them into bankruptcy, just got
the golden parachute. Yeah, yeah.
What we're dealing with is this almost worship of, boy, I gotta get up there to be an MBA or something that where I can have the 300-foot yacht like everybody else. I really believe that that is such a problem in our culture. You better be tough for the rest of your days.
Yep, yep. No, and this is something that the comment was the culture of greed and what's happening. What do we see in the papers, et cetera? It always bugs the heck out of me. People who run a business into the ground and then they have the golden parachute and they keep the money, and I'm like, hold it, they just, why? Even in higher education with the University of Arizona's basketball coach, even for cause, if he was fired, he gets to keep his salary. And I'm like, what? That is not in my contract. If there's for cause, contract gone, no pay. But how we work with that is go ahead and, again, that widening the gap. It's scary, it's scary. But again, why I'm so proud of that I left four-year institutions, I've worked at various types. Why I'm so proud, let me put it that way, in the positive. Community colleges get it. They're the people's college. I always say, hey, we're the community's college. How are we accountable? So let me ask, yes?
I really like the community college model because students can take whatever classes they want and none of the classes they don't care about. In contrast,
but you like all of them.
Kindergarten through 12th grade is a miserable experience because there is no freedom. And children pick on each other. And one of my ideas was replacing high school with the community college model. And I was wondering if, well, what outreach you can do to prisoners, as you referred to them in high school.
My sister was a high school teacher, not me.
Well, teachers are miserable too. I had my freshman geography teacher was so depressed because no one cared about her class. And they were only there because they had to be.
They had to be.
Because that was the curriculum.
I think, I would, go back to what we're doing here. There's nothing magical about 12 years of seat time. If the student's ready for a college class, and many of them are not. They're not. The maturity level, and my field is human development. Some of them just aren't there. That's why I love the GED students, because the high school didn't fit them. So they fly the coop and everything's there. But as you look at that, the percentage that we have that we're tied to these high schools and the JTEDs we're one of the largest ones in the state. Because if those students are ready, what's magical? Let's get them going. Why tell them, oh no, you have to sit there in that miserable class, whatever, and wait until you graduate before classes in college.
You said JTED, is that Joint Technology Education District?
No, Joint Technical Education District. Again, why we have such a strong, one of the reasons why we have such a strong career technical program is that the schools can't afford them anymore. So they go together as a district, and on this side of the mountain is the Mountain Institute JTED, the other side is VACTE, the Verdi Academy for Career Technical Education. They go together, and then if they want college credit for those courses, they partner with us. So we have a very strong partnership with us, both at PV and Prescott Valley and at CTEC in those vocational programs. But you're right, if you're ready, what's magical about it? Do it. So we're already working so much with the high schools. That's just in that role, but then also as we look at concurrent. Students can come here anytime and take a college course if they're ready for it. And as I said, many of them are not. If the good high school, they'll get it, but what's magical? If they're ready, let them loose. Anyway, yes, Carol.
If you offered free tuition, where would the money come from?
Where would the money come from? That is part, okay, with GED, we're able to go ahead and balance that. One, Our model for GED is last dollar in, not first dollar in, which means we look at all the federal aid, et cetera. Guess what? The GED graduates, overwhelming percentage of them are eligible for Pell Grants. That comes in first. We pay the end. We know with our enrollment, the measly little bit of dollars that we get from the state, that can balance that out with the enrollment. And so we do have some, and so we do the last dollar in. So if we would expand that, again, the variation in the different states, obviously I can't talk about the specifics of this because I quite frankly don't know, but they're under that framework. Do they do, if you, as you read about these other states, see if they're first dollar in or last dollar in. But under the American Promise, feds will do $3 to the $1, but it makes sure that the state's going to put $1 in. Right now, my big budget is not if we're going to pass it or not here. It's what is the legislature going to do to take some more out. Because the governor's got a major challenge. K through 12, it's their time. Lowest teacher salaries in the nation. And he's got a political, it's the election year. He didn't want that to come up probably. And where's he going to get the money? So your question's very good. And as I said, in Tennessee, it started in these counties with a foundation. How do we do that across the board? How, you know, and how do you balance that? Kalamazoo was one of the Kalamazoo, Michigan. It was again another major foundation or business owner who said, hey, we're going to have every kid in 4th grade, if they do this, I'm guaranteeing them education for free at a college. And they've done it. So good question. We'd have to pursue it more to see, but we'll be last dollar in. Other questions, comments? Yes.
To what extent does the default rate on student loans affect this facility?
Right now, who's here from financial aid? Okay. You're from financial aid too? Oh, okay, you got financial, okay. Okay. Presently. There you are, Deb, I knew you were. Yeah, at 25%. What are we, at 20%? We're at 20%. Am I proud of that? No. Do I know that the student services staff is doing everything they can to do that as far as proactive? We do debt counseling up the wazoo. We warn students, here's the debt, here's the loan that you're taking, you've got to pay this back. Again, that student being responsible. What's scary in the Higher Ed Reauthorization Act, at the congressional level, they're saying, well, obviously these default rates are so high, we're just going to make the colleges pay it back. Even if we do all these things. Now, there's a variable in there called the student. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I've run across a few students, not literally run across them, even though I wanted to after I heard what they said. I know that I don't have to pay this back because I'll be dead by then. And I'm like, whoa, hold it. Wherever did that come from, that you don't feel responsible for debt?
I just wanted to let you know that I didn't ask that question to put the college on the spot. There's an excellent article in Rolling Stone magazine, November 16th of last year.
Okay.
From the overall rate across the country is 20% as far as default.
Yeah.
1.3 or 2 trillion.
Yep.
That
it's
is
high.
going to come to roost.
Yep.
Now, the bottom line is, or a portion of this is the fact that the major universities, like the University of Wisconsin, are mentioned in this
With Stout?
Where they've been pumping their reserves, and they could lower those reserves and lower their tuitions, or you know, do something different. So that was my purpose of bringing that up.
Yeah. One of the beauties and strengths of American higher education is there's such a variety. I do salivate when I see the reserves, more the foundation of Harvard. And they don't raise, they keep raising their tuition. Oh, okay, great. And hey, how do we do that? I also get a little bent out of shape about athletics when I see what money's going into those. Here, our athletics is paid for, but at the same time, it's not The coaches' salaries aren't $2 and $3 million by any means. And those are our best students, not only because they're full-time, and we get measured by the feds by full-time, first-time freshmen in the fall term, which we don't have that many, but they're primarily athletes. Their GPAs are high, and they're drug-free because we do drug testing. We're one of the schools in the state that does that. So trying to say, hey, how do we, they're students first. And I remind them all the time, you're student athletes, you're not athletics. And try to ask the baseball players what their majors are. Baseball? No. You're not getting off with that. So, okay, because, oh, Ginny's going to be upset. Where's Ginny? I'm afraid of her. Okay, because I was supposed to finish at 1. I'll stay around for a while, but just thank you all. Thank you. Hopefully this was informative for you.